Would you allow a child to go out unsupervised, cross a crosswalk without adult supervision, holding their hand, holding a knife to chop food and not knowing how to do it, or putting their hand on a hot stove not knowing that the stove is too hot? Of course you don't let a child go unsupervised. Why are some people unsupervised concerning religion, concerning their faith, concerning spiritual thinking? Some folk need their hands held. I'll be right back.
You can do it. Don't stop. Ed Montgomery. Come on. A new way of thinking. Transform your mind. Straight from the vine. Fresh new wine.
Hello, welcome. I am Ed Montgomery, your host today for Fresh New Wine, where we deal with the issues of crushed grapes. What do I mean by that? What's going on in our generation, squeezing the things out of our generation, letting it ferment. But you got to put this liquid into a vessel that can stretch, because if you don't, the fermentation process can break the structure. We're seeing a lot of broken structures out here in our government, in our churches, in our relationships, in a lot of new different ways. I'm also your host of Sensational Sunday every Sunday morning right here, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. And also you can catch me on the radio, 90.9 FM here in the city of Houston. KTSU, you can click on your clicker and you can listen to us globally, all these different places that you can find us. So make sure you hit the like button, hit the share button, and comment. Let me know where you are. If you're not in the city of Houston, let me know the name of your city. If you're not in the state of Texas, type in the state that you're from. If you're not in the United States, type in what country you're listening to us from. Last week, I dealt with a situation, a subject that was people had been interviewing other people, and so had come to this point where they were talking about God. God is not well, God is a man. God is not a female. God is not a it. And we got deep into it. So you can go back to the previous Fresh New Wine that I did. I think I did an extra broadcast on it, and you can listen at what I talked about before. And people get all bent out of shape when you start talking about well, God is a man, we call him Father. It was so strange to me. And I said to myself, I said, well, what do you mean by God? Is God a man? Man? What do you mean? Well, God is a man. What do you mean? Human man? God is a man. If he's a human man, does God have all the plumbing equipment that goes with a human man? Well, God is a man without the plumbing. Well, is a man without the plumbing a human man? What is that? And all week long I've been talking with people and it stumps them. But here is what you come to the point of understanding. It's out of 1 Corinthians chapter 13. It's the text that we pull from these ancient scriptures, from the Bible itself. And it says, I think I got somebody read it. Read that. I think it's around the 11th verse, I think. One of my producers is reading this. Read it.
When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known.
All right. If you're first time reading something like this, it will sound like a bunch of gobbledygook to you. Even if you've been reading scripture all of your life, it may sound like some gobbledygook because these words are all crunched up. But the basic concept is, when I was a child, I believed in Santa Claus. I thought the thoughts about Santa Claus. I thought about visions of sugar plums dancing in my head. When up on the rooftop, there rose such a clatter. I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. There was 8 tiny reindeer and a little old man, old jolly old elf. I believed in Santa Claus. We're going into these holiday seasons. We believe that the pilgrims were some wonderful, gracious people who just really loved and embraced what they called the Indians or the indigenous people. To this day, the indigenous people are still having issues about that whole Thanksgiving concept. These are myths. These are stories that we have been told, religious stories to an extent, but we still have not grown up. When I was a child, I thought like a child. I understood as a child. I spoke as a child. This is how we looked at religion. We looked at religion as God being a he. God's not a she. Because we're afraid that if God has a divine femininity involved there, oh yeah, when you start talking like that, there's that stuff in there, God, the manosphere thing. God doesn't have that. Well, we know good and well that God had the woman inside. I mean, that Adam had the woman, or man had the woman inside of himself. When God pulled that woman out, or pulled that rib out and made a woman from the rib of Adam. This is a metaphor. This is basically what it's saying, is that God pulled the woman out of the man. God pulled the woman out from the man. What did he pull out of the man? God pulled a man out of the man, but he made the man a woman, a man with a womb. Same man, but a man with a womb. Interesting. When you really read these things and begin to grow up. When I was a child, religiously, some of us have not grown up. I'm listening to some of these influencers, or who call themselves influencers, and they wind up going after people, talking about their ministries, talking about their careers, talking about whether the celebrities that they go after. And I see why they're doing it, because it gets them clicks. It gets them views. It gets them a lot of things that they can monetize things for. And people will say, oh, I'm not into all of that. Oh, yes, you are. And there's nothing wrong with being into it. There's nothing wrong with wanting to get clicks. I like to get clicks. I like to be viewed, because it lets me know that what I'm saying, my message, is getting out there. But when you want to do something like that in order to create a sense of danger concerning somebody's life, someone's ministry, someone's marriage, someone's relationship, that is none of your business, because you are a child with the scriptures in your hand and do not understand what you're doing. What you need is supervision. And let me tell you what supervision is. Supervision is faith. Now, I know you're going to say to me, Dr. Ed Montgomery, we know what faith is. We called up Siri. Siri gave us a definition of faith. Faith is a moral code that is held by someone, and that is very guarded and very strongly believed or strongly accepted by that person. It's my faith. But it was something that was strongly understood or held by you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40, 60 years ago. And it's the same way now as it was then. Well, Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. That's Jesus. I'm talking about our thinking. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about your thinking. Has our thinking changed about how we believe or how we believe about our scriptures, our gospel, what they mean to us? Or have these things we have faith about so ingrained in us because it was taught to us by people with a European influence? You do know that the gospel did not first come out of Europe. You understand that, right? You do know. Well, Jesus came out of the Middle East. You do know that the Middle East was not something that was considered to be the Middle East back then, but was actually a part of Africa and something called Asia. So what happens when we were a child? The difference between being a child and growing up. What is grown up thinking? Don't you go away. Stay with me right here. I want you to listen to this, and I'll be right back. Take a moment. I wanted to break right here. Take a moment, because how you give, what you give, we're in a month of sharing. Thanksgiving, Christmas, during times like this, a month of sharing. Take a moment and break some bread with us and share with us so that we can get what we're saying, this message out. Because there's a lot of crazy doctrines out there, and a lot of people who think they're theologians, and there's some shortcomings there. I want you to take a moment and go, and you can text to give 713-742-2035, 713-742-2035. And whether it's $7, $8, $9, share whatever you have. It will make a total difference in us doing what we do. So I just wanted to take a quick break and share that with you. Let me get back to my story here. I was while we were away, I was thinking about how much time we waste trying to convince and argue with other people. Well, God is not a man. God is a man. God is not a woman. God is it. I talk about it. I laugh at it. People talk about, well, God is not a it. You can't, and you don't call God a it. Then stop telling people how it hits you from the top of your head down to the soles of your feet. That's what black folk have always said. Child, it was in the room. It was in the church. And you know what you're talking about. But it is not disrespectful. That's not disrespect. It's how people of color relate with their religion. We change. Do you realize how long it took? And I'm going to be honest with you, and I've talked to other black people too. It took to get the image of Jesus being white skin, blue eyed, long blonde, straight hair, to get that image out of our heads to when we finally saw God not as some old white man with gray hair, but to see God as a spirit. And what I mean by seeing God as a spirit, I'm talking about seeing with an inner eye. I don't see Jesus as a white male. But do you know how long it took to get that out of your image? When you're praying, you see a white male and you find yourself praying to this white male. It took a while to get that out and to realize that Christ is a principle. Christ is how we've come to understand ourselves. Christ is the divinity that is not up in the sky, but is within us. That is one of the primary differences with European religion. They want you to believe that God is the white guy in the sky, when we believe that God is the one that's in us. And if God is in us, that this God is just as black as us. That ought to mess you up right there. When are we going to change and grow up? When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I thought as a child. I understood as a child. The King James version of it says, but when I became a man, but actually it says, when I became mature, when I started thinking differently. Faith, ladies and gentlemen, is not some moral concept as Siri or the dictionary, Webster's tells us, some moral concept that we hold strictly and strongly in our minds. If it never changes, then what we call faith and our belief always remains exactly where it is. And we never change in how we treat each other, how we see each other. What if we don't see God merely as a man in the sky? What if we see the divinity of God inside of ourselves? A piece of that divinity in us. Then when we see that, black people don't look at other black people as someone that's going to hurt and destroy them the moment that they see them. Who taught you to hate yourself? Who taught you as white people to hate black people? That's childish teaching. That's childish understanding. The whole concept of black men, white women, black women, and this whole thing of the hatred between all of us. Who taught us that? Who taught us that we cannot literally bridge the gap of understanding and conversation? Every time we seem to be able to come together to understand each other a little bit better, somebody up at the top starts sticking their hand in and creating a wedge. It seems that the rich, or those who want to make money from the separation, these are the ones that want to separate the white and the black, the Latino, the Asian. They want to separate. Keep everybody apart, because if you ever come together and bring all of your divinities together as one, have you any idea how powerful you are? This is what's going on in our country right now. We are growing up. You see, 1 Corinthians, or actually it's Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3 says, by faith we understand that the generations were framed or pieced together by the living or by the word or by the thinking of God. It is thoughts that hold generations together. When we start growing up enough to start thinking like God, then we change generations. But when you start changing generations, you start changing the amounts of money that some people want to make off of your ignorance. When you start thinking, you start changing. When you think, you imagine. When you imagine, you create. And when you create, money and abundance will come to you. And when it comes to you from those that have been hoarding it from you. And then you begin to use it, not just to be a multi-billionaire, but you start using it to change people's lives. When you start thinking and using scripture, oh boy, like an adult, like a mature person, your relationship changes. Men, how you deal with women when you start coming from a mature aspect. When a woman sees a man who is a mature man in his spiritual thinking, he doesn't have to make her do anything, he doesn't even need the Bible or the scriptures to make her believe that he's the head of the house. Come on. And he doesn't need the Bible to make the woman believe that she ought to be with him at night the way she ought to be with him. But you know what? I've just been told I've run out of time. And I think we are growing up. See you later. Hello, my friends. I'm Ed Montgomery. You know me, Pastor Ed, Dr. Ed. Thank you so much for doing what you do and contributing from your heart. People think giving comes from the pocket. Never has. It comes directly from the heart. In the world that we're living in right now, so many changes, so many things happening that will make us lose our faith. Listen, I've got to teach more than I've ever taught. Stay online more than I've ever been online. Because it's not just going to be enough to encourage. We're reteaching the faith. That's right, reteaching the faith. Because we have to begin to strengthen the teaching so that people who've never heard this gospel like this before can hear it and continue to move on. So when you give, you're pushing me and telling me and challenging me to keep going forward. Take a moment, go to myalc.org. That's myalc.org. myalc.org. And go ahead and click that donate button. It is safe, it is secure, and not only that, but it only takes just a couple of minutes, maybe even a few seconds for those of you that are already signed up. Or if you want to use your phone, wherever you're watching or however you're watching, you can use text to give. And that's 713-742-2035. 713-742-2035. Or you can go old school and you can write a check and send it in to Abundant Life Center or Ed Montgomery. It doesn't go into my pocket, it goes into our ministry. 772-300, Houston, Texas, 77215. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for what you already do. I am praying for you, and I am praying the best over your gift and over the offering. And I pray that abundance will continue to flow in your life in so many different ways. It'll warm your heart. God bless you. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Hit that subscribe button, smash it, crash it. Let us know you're there.